I recently found out about a film by Oliver Stone that's coming out called Savages, and I was intrigued as somebody who's been polyamorous for probably 15 years or so. For the majority of that time, I thought, well, this is cool because it's going to reach a more mainstream audience. This idea, the three characters in this film are in a triad, they're not monogamous, and they all get along, and it's just assumed from the beginning of the film. They don't have to like work through that or try to move into that. That's where it begins. It's established that they're in a triadic relationship, and so there's going to be a lot of action. Apparently, it involves a kidnapping, and depending on when you're watching this video, maybe it came out by now. It's going to come out July 6th, I believe, 2012. And I feel that a lot of new ideas, although there's nothing really new, but ideas that are new to the mainstream don't really catch on until they're explored in Hollywood or television, mainstream media. And so I think it's interesting that recently there have been on HBO and then on regular television, there's been a couple shows about polygamy. And it's interesting that those caught on. I'm talking about Big Love and a series called Sister Wives, which is still on. I think it's interesting those caught on because they're still from a more patriarchal standpoint that reinforces the notion that men have these kind of multiples partner sexual needs, but women don't, and women can be content with limitations and so forth, and that caught on more readily. Whereas from what I've read in reviews of Savages, this primary female character played by Blake Lively, she likes sex unabashedly, and because she likes sex, she's going to be labeled a whore. And because she has two lovers, she's going to be labeled a whore. These are just common reactions that are so mainstream, widely accepted about women's sexuality that have really been perpetuated by male jealousy. That one way of controlling and limiting a woman is trying to convince her that any kind of sexual aliveness that she experiences that are in addition to him makes her bad in some way, makes her a whore, slut, whatever. Something's fucked up about her, apparently. And this movie, Savages, is going to bring up some interesting feelings and perhaps conversations for traditional couples that go to watch it, because women who watch it are going to be turned on and men are going to feel threatened. But there's a lot of action in the film, so the men are still going to be drawn to that. And apparently the two men, this movie is based on a book, but again, nothing really catches on till it's more made into a film or TV. The men are friends, they get along, and so they're actually going to be role modeling non-jealousy. And because their lover is captured, kidnapped, they're going to rescue her, work together. So it's really, cool on that level, that it transcends that typical kind of male competition for limited love, limited sex that is normally portrayed. Now, regarding women's sexuality and how she's going to be perceived, she's going to be kind of like a Rorschach test, an ink blot for people and how they perceive women. And so if they have ideas about women should be very, suppressed and out of touch with their sexuality, they're going to judge her. But in reality, women have a greater capacity for sexual pleasure than men do. It's just a lot of times they've lost touch with it or suppressed it or keep it hidden because they don't want to be a threat to what they perceive as male judgment about that. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of systemic effects come from this film in terms of what it brings up for people who watch it. There have been other films that have explored this topic, but this one seems to be very in your face, and I respect Oliver Stone for not being afraid of controversy on that level. I think that the traditional monogamy narrative that is normally explored in films boils down to two basic kind of themes. One is a character has to make a choice between two people as to who they end up with, and this idea tends to perpetuate this kind of like hierarchy and good and bad. One character is better for the hero or the heroine of the film, and the other is worse for them, and that kind of simplistic dichotomy. And the other traditional monogamous narrative is you're already in a relationship, but you're tempted, and so you either explore it or don't explore it, but are at least tempted to explore it, and then you find out that you were wrong and that person was bad and you should be with the person you were with originally. So, I heard a film critic once say, I think it was in the film 20 Dates or 20 First Dates or something like that, and he was talking about the fact that most of what we call love stories or romance movies or whatever are not really about love. They are about pursuit, and they end at the marriage, or they end when the two people decide to be together, but they don't really go deep into the exploration of what happens after they end up together during the course of their relationship. Now, for most people, there's a very narrow kind of script that is given, and unless they break out of that kind of limited thinking, they're going to try their best to fit the script of what happens in their lives. I'm not talking about characters now, I'm talking about real people when they have feelings of love. Now, typically that involves they become exclusive, and they live together, and they have children, and they are each other's only source of love and sexuality until death do they part, or divorce, or cheating. This whole concept is really blown out of the water by the book Sex at Dawn, which I highly recommend to people that they read if they want to look at a different perspective about who we are sexually. The book basically claims that we are non-monogamous by nature, and that it's been our socialization that has taught us to behave monogamously, which I believe has led to a lot of misery for a lot of people and a lot of deception as well. And if you think about it, the way most people do their sexual kind of life, they have a variety of different partners for a while, and then all of a sudden they find one that is going to be their source of love and sex forever. And anyone that might be appealing outside of that dynamic is seen as a threat, which will be sabotaged by one's partner or oneself to perpetuate the holy sanctity of the marriage or the partnership or whatever. And so hating more than one person is seen as very common and very easy to do, but loving more than one person is seen as something that's inherently wrong. And so we have to have a lot of rules against it in our various belief systems to stop it from happening. But this really goes against what we know at our core about interconnectedness, about love being healing, about love being good. So it all boils down to jealousy. And jealousy is something that is really easy to perpetuate because it's uncomfortable. But one of the good points in Sex at Dawn is that when humans were, in a tribal kind of way, similar to bonobos, if you watch videos of bonobos or read about bonobos, if they're creating bonds through sexuality and they are, very non-exclusive in their interactions sexually, this is an approach that's based on abundance. So jealousy normally occurs when people feel there is scarcity. I have this one source of feeling good, and if I lose that, that's going to be horrible, so I have to fight for it. But if you get away that kind of scarcity mentality and you open up to a more abundant perspective, then you can let go easier because you know that you will still have opportunities as well to experience love and sexuality with someone else. And so jealousy for most people, though, is where they just stop their thinking. They completely shut down any kind of consideration outside of monogamy, no matter how uncomfortable they are within it, because the thought of their partner being with someone else is horrible in their mind. And so some people can move through that, but usually a relationship will end if that is the inner conflict between not being satisfied with monogamy but not being able to let go of possession. And when a relationship ends, then you can reconsider who you are and look at your socialization process, because I've been realizing lately how this whole process of being taught what we're supposed to do with love and sex is a real setup, because it's normal to have a kind of drug-like high that is supported by society when you love somebody new in your life and you feel special and it feels good to be sexual with them. So you make all these choices about exclusivity and living together and all these things, which do not last in many cases for people. And so what to do then? You know, a lot of people start to resent their partner. A lot of people look for flirtation and other kinds of ways of creating energy with other people. Half of all marriages experience some form of infidelity, and it's clearly not working for a lot of people. But just getting over this whole jealousy concept, that's the key to people questioning how they do relationships. And we're very diverse, you know, we have all different kinds of psychological and emotional things going on. And so to try to package the way we do intimacy into one very narrow kind of, you know, tunnel of what this should look like, it just doesn't work for people. And a lot of people are really opening their minds more than ever to different kind of perspectives. And polyamory is a way of questioning the norms and opening up different options that may be more suited to the way that you will feel most congruent in expressing your sexuality. Because I feel that if you just all of a sudden, you know, let's say you're 5 years into a relationship and it starts to dawn upon you that this is the only source of sexual intimacy that you're going to ever experience again, it's really common then to, if you don't cheat, you know, if you respect your partner enough to not cheat, then you're going to turn to other kinds of sources for feeling good in your life. You may become a workaholic, or turn to food, or fantasy, try to be famous, try to, you know, live life through your children or whatever like that. And none of it really satisfies. If you are naturally somebody who, like I believe all humans are drawn to a more expansive vision of love. In the beginning of Sister Wives, the man, Cody, says, love should be multiplied, not divided. And that might sound like a neat little catchphrase for that show, but it's it's hypocrisy, because it only applies to him and not his four partners. So if you believe that love is something that is expansive in its nature and that you can love more than one person, just like, you know, there are many parents who experience love of more than one child. They don't have to just single out the best one. And sex, you know, in our partnerships does not have to change that ability to love more than one person if we are able to transcend jealousy. So I believe that films and other sources of media, that I think it's going to really, we're going to start to see an exponential increase of different role models, because the monogamy narrative is good for drama because it has morality, but we've seen so many morality plays about what is good behavior and what is bad behavior within the monogamous, you know, kind of context, that it's just starting to get dry and dull. And so new visions, I think, will help people to open their minds and expand the options that they see available to them, as long as we have more and more role models for how love can look. Thanks for listening.